One, two. Hello and welcome everyone to our GCEC Virtual Connections webinar. Today we're going to hear all about an interesting pedagogical, award-winning pedagogical program. It's award-winning and interesting from our friends at the University of Loyola in Baltimore, Loyola, Maryland. So first, I just want to welcome everyone. My name is Jeff Reed. I have been a member of GCEC and attendee since the late 90s. Absolutely love this organization. I'm now the director of entrepreneurship at Georgetown University. And I can tell you there's nothing more valuable to me than learning from my peers and sharing lessons learned. And GCEC just gives you so many great ways to do that. So for those who are not already familiar with GCEC, we strongly encourage you to join. You know, we've got the virtual connections, we've got an annual conference, LinkedIn, Slack channel, award programs, newsletter, all kinds of ways to learn from each other, share best practices, and just help you build your entrepreneurship programs. So please join GCEC. Today, as I mentioned, we have our 2024 award winner for excellence in teaching and pedagogical innovation, a course and a program around applied angel investing. So I'm going to turn over to my friend and colleague, Wendy Bolger, and she's going to introduce her colleagues, and they're going to share why their program, what it's all about, what they do at Loyola, Maryland around angel investing. And I think by the time this is over, we'll all realize why they won an award for this program. So with that, happy to turn it over to you, Wendy, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm going to share my screen now. Is that working for folks?
Yes, it is working.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for having us. We are thrilled to be here today and share about what we've been doing with applied angel investing. So grateful to Nadine and Holly and to Brad for organizing this and inviting us in, and to all of you for coming. I want to start by saying that launching this class, Applied Angel Investing, was probably one of the hardest things that I've done so far. I've been at Loyola as the founding director of our Simon Center for Innovation Entrepreneurship for about 6 years. And definitely this was one of our biggest challenges. So it's going to look pretty straightforward, and you're going to see how we won this wonderful award. And we are so grateful for the recognition. But I want to stress that part of the reason why the award is really so sweet to us is because, you know, it took a lot for us to make this happen. So my message to all of you is even if it looks, you know, really simple and easy, it's not. It's not straightforward. So for those of you who are also introducing, you know, exciting, innovative new pedagogy in your schools, I encourage you to keep at it, be persistent, and also to know that it might take a little more time than you expect. But I'm confident, right, that you can deliver if you keep at it. So that's a little bit of context for what we're going to talk about. I also want to share, we're going to share about, you know, what the class looks like, and maybe this is a class that you want to interpret or have something like this on your campus. I think there also are folks on this call who have their own, you know, innovation. They have their own really exciting class about a totally other topic in entrepreneurship, and they want to know how to write a winning, you know, award application, right, to GCEC. So I do have a few tips around that for those of you who are just looking to sort of crack the code in terms of how to try to score well when it comes to working at your application for the award. So I'm happy to take questions in either of those areas, and we'll go ahead and start out with this presentation. So a couple things to know about the way we set up the class and a lot of the structures that go around it, which are unusual, you know, and not typical to our regular entrepreneurship class. The first one being that we had an angel fund that we raised. We raised $250,000 for the Loyola Angel Fund in order to support the investments that are made through this class. So that's the first thing we did before we even developed the curriculum, was raise the money mostly from alums and other donors. So that started back in 2020. We finally got the class on the books in spring of 2023. The folks who we fund through the class and through the fund, they apply to the Loyola Angels Fund. And in order to apply, they have to be participants in our Baltrepreneurs Accelerator. So that is our annual accelerator program. We take from 8 to 12 underserved entrepreneurs from Baltimore every year. And so that is one qualification that everyone has to have before the class will even consider their application. The last thing is to understand about how this works and about the class is that the job of the students in the class is to do due diligence, and they make a recommendation or two to an investment committee. And that's how we make the decision about who we're going to fund. And you'll hear more about that when our professor, Jay Nwachu, comes on, but I just want to set the stage with some of those details around the class. All right, I'm trying to advance my slides here. They're not going. Hmm. Sorry, folks, I'm going to try to reshare and see if I can get these to advance for you.
No worries. All good.
All right. Okay. How's that looking? Great. So why did we do this class? There are a lot of different folks who really are stakeholders in applied angel investing. And so all of the interests of these different parties aligned for us to launch this class.
And
So,
Wendy, real quick, sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
We do see the slide. It's showing us the kind of notes view. I don't know if
Okay.
it doesn't matter too much if you don't care, but just in case you had another screen that was better for you.
I don't know why.
I mean, I feel like I can still get the point. If you just want to keep going, it's okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to stick it here. Oh, here we go. Just put end slideshow. No, I don't want that. I'm going to keep it here so I don't have to spend time messing with it. I can just save time by talking to you guys. Entrepreneurs were our very first stakeholder. And the thing that we heard from entrepreneurs who we work with in the community most often was that they need more access to early stage funding. And the thing that we reflected was that's something we think we can help with. We have donors who we know want to support those entrepreneurs. Students, of course, extremely important stakeholder. We knew that in class, we could expose them to some career skills and some industries that they really want to get into, but they might not have so much exposure to otherwise. Finally, this class and the fund was a great way to engage with alums and donors who really want to be involved and want to help and find more meaningful ways sometimes than just writing a check. And finally, long-term, in our small way, we have a goal and we think that our class can help really impact the industry overall by creating a different pipeline, by creating some different kinds of students who might, through learning about angel investing, become interested in VC and diversify that industry and those they fund. So this is where we get a little bit into whether it's innovation and how to present the class. These are some of the arguments we made about what was innovative about our class. I think in the interest of time, I won't walk through all of them, but know that all these different levers came into play with the class. And in terms of integration, the class is part of the minor in innovation entrepreneurship, so you can't get the minor without taking this class. And it's also, of course, integrated with the accelerator program so that students get an awareness and exposure to working in the community with community-based entrepreneurs. So what happened? What's the impact? What happens after all this? Really student transformation is our goal. And what we saw happen, the students, because they're using real money, So, investments of up to $20,000 and working with real entrepreneurs, they're very excited to come to class and to do their homework because they know about the impact that they're having. So multiple students have gone into venture capital. Here are some of their testimonials. We won't read through them, but these students, even if they already had the inclination to be in the field, it really opened their eyes to go a little deeper, particularly in more impact-based investing. The last student I'll profile here is a perfect segue into handing this over to our faculty member who's in charge of this class, Professor Jay Nuachu. Toby is a great example of sort of what can happen through this class. He's a psychology major. He never had a business class in his career at Loyola until he came to this class. He was so successful in the class that he was selected for Venture for America, and then ended up being hired by his professor, Jay Nuachu, to be an investor at Ignite Capital. So great story there. And with that, I would love to pass on to our professor, Jay Nuachu, whose leadership of this class has been absolutely instrumental to making it happen and to the success we've had.
Thank you, Wendy, and happy Friday, everyone, with love from Baltimore. Thanks for the opportunity to share about this course. I'm going to do a quick introduction of myself, and then I will jump into my slides if you do not mind. So, as was in my title, I am an adjunct at Loyola. I teach one class, which means I really have a day job somewhere else. And I'll share a little bit about that because it does speak to my interest in this particular course and why I think it's incredibly important and how universities think about engaging their local communities. My day job, I run two organizations, Innovation Works and an affiliated organization called Ignite Capital. We support social entrepreneurs in Baltimore City that are working in alignment with our vision of closing the racial wealth gap in the city. So the entrepreneurs that we're working with are working across many sectors, many stages, and we are simply trying to figure out how to support them to help rebuild Baltimore's local economy. And as Wendy mentioned, one of the most important things in how we support entrepreneurs and build local economies is access to capital. Access to capital has long been one of the biggest challenges faced by entrepreneurs. So for that reason, we launched Ignite Capital, which is our impact investing arm. So on the Ignite Capital side of the house, we have reimagined what it takes to actually support entrepreneurs who are trying to solve problems in our communities and try to remove some of the traditional barriers that exist in doing that. I say some crazy things that finance will kind of shrug at, like we don't do credit checks, we don't ask for personal guarantees, we don't take collateral, we focus on building relationships and so that we can be able to put money to work in our community. So that's the framework that I bring to this class. So when the opportunity came up to take those experiences to think about how to turn this opportunity, someone raising a fund and saying, hey, the money's there, just design something to go teach it. For me, it was like the greatest gift ever. So when that opportunity came up and to build a really experiential educational syllabus for these students, I jumped at it because it's for me, this is fun stuff. It's laboratory work and a way to really help inspire young people who are going to go into the field to really, really think about how the role of capital shapes our economy, especially from an equitable standpoint. So I would jump into my slides now, if I can find it so I can share it. There you go. So when the class was being designed, the goal was to really pull together a course that would really equip students with the ideas and the processes that are required to become an early stage investor. Obviously, the role of angel investors typically are at the earliest of stages of companies, and it also becomes one of the riskiest stages of investment. So really being able to help students understand what that really means in the life cycle of a company securing financing was really important. And then ensuring that we don't lose the thread of that the notion around bridging the capital gap for historically marginalized and underrepresented founders. Because Loyola's Baltimorepreneurs program, by design, actually brings in a lot of community based entrepreneurs who usually are underrepresented in the capital ecosystem. It was really, really important not to make sure we're not bringing folks from the community into a classroom environment and not raising up the importance of that dynamic in the process of angel investing. So that became a big part of the course design in itself. And I'll speak a little bit more to how that showed up. And then making sure that the students are actually taking away valuable skills for whatever world they're going to go into in the future. Some of the key objectives as part of the course design was, again, this equipment with these practical skills that are going to be necessary in the investment world, an understanding of the capital markets at large, not just angel investing, but angel investing in the broader spectrum of capital and the different types of businesses that exist in the markets and how we think about them uniquely, not just this idea that angel investing can just solve everyone's problem, because it's not really for everyone. And selfishly, I brought in themes around impact investing into the classroom because of the population from the community entrepreneurs that were going to be coming to that classroom to engage with students. There are some unique relationships between angel investments and impact investing as a framework. And I wanted to make sure they understood the dynamics of that, given the population that we're going to be working with. And then some of the learning outcomes kind of just mirrored as objectives. I won't go too much into that. But things like valuation methods and negotiation strategies, because often as an angel, you're negotiating deals, you're negotiating term sheets, you are thinking about how to value a company that's so early that doesn't really have a lot of traction. So we did kind of walk through a lot of methodology around those things, kind of give them a sense of what the field really looks like, which I think the students found valuable. And then also understanding risk management, because often we walk into investment frameworks with this idea of risk, and then how do we talk about what is a perceived risk, what is an informed risk that still makes you invest, versus what is a risk that makes you not want to invest, and how to think about that, especially when we think about portfolio design as a fund, not just one investment opportunity. The class was broken up into several week chunks of frameworks. I'll be honest with you, probably the students maybe weren't expecting this, but the first 3 weeks was really a lot of grounding in history, practice, what has worked, what has not worked in the field of angel investing, in the field of finance in general. Some of that was grounded in the context of race in the financial systems, because again, I would not want community-based entrepreneurs coming into a classroom to engage students, and the students didn't really have that context of what the entrepreneurs may be facing and the challenges they may be facing on a day-to-day basis. So the first 3 weeks was really just rooting them in context and framework, so that when they start engaging and they start going down the road and looking at spreadsheets and deals, they would be able to have those contexts in mind. Then we shifted to deal sourcing and due diligence. By this time, entrepreneurs from the angels, from the Loyola program, the Entrepreneurs program, would have completed an application of interest, right? And now we have materials from those folks. And this is when the students really got a chance to start digging into the applications. I felt bad for them because they had to make some really quick decisions in that process. It's really, hey, we have, 15 applications. We have enough students to bring into 3 deal teams. So you can only pick 3 out of 15. How do we think about criteria? Do you have enough information from any of these applications? And we need to make some decisions fast about which ones you're going to spend a couple of weeks diligencing, which usually students are afraid. It's like, what if we make the wrong choice? And how do we select the right one? I'm like, this is a laboratory. Yes, there's a real entrepreneur out there, but you're not going to spend 6 weeks trying to do sourcing and trying to figure out all the criteria. So there's some pressure environments in that to help them really learn about, avoiding analysis paralysis. How do you just have some frameworks? What does it mean to have a fun thesis to really, really help you make some quick decisions about who you can support or not support? And how do you deliver messaging to folks who you don't select to make sure they still feel like the process was honoring their human dignity, and even though they didn't get selected? After we go through a number of things around what it takes to source, how you diligence, what things you're looking for in that process, we then get to the place of like, okay, is there a go, no go here? Or is there enough from your diligence process where it makes you want to think about investing? And then week 7 through 9, we shift to some of the more hard math stuff, right? How you evaluating these companies that really don't have a lot of traction because a lot of them are very early stage. There are methodologies for that. They're not the cleanest methodologies because it's all based on frameworks and point systems, not necessarily looking at actual revenue from a business. We talk about, what that means and how there's a lot of subjectivity baked into that and judgment calls, which means this is the reason why angel investing is so risky sometimes. And we start talking about the things you have to deal with in our term sheets and start thinking about negotiations from there. And are there covenants that you want to use in term sheets to manage for risk? Or there are simple things you just want to share with the entrepreneurs that you're seeing? Towards the end, we start talking about, the last class invested in these 2 or 3 companies. This is how they're doing so far. Here are the industries that they're in. Does this implicate who you choose to invest in this class? Because you want some level of diversity in your portfolio so you don't have over concentration of risk. Who's going to be able to pay back sooner rather than later, so you have more money flowing into the fund from repayments so that you don't put future classes at risk of not having any money to invest. We'll do those types of analysis, but all along the way, starting around week 4, week 5, week 6, they're actually engaging entrepreneurs who they've selected. They're doing interviews, they're requesting materials in a Dropbox, they're pouring through business plans and financial models or whatever else that everybody get their hands on. And we kind of talk about that through class, whether they're seeing what more information do they need, how are they interpreting the conversation, the things that are happening there. And then this is where I would go to like some of the methods of driving the point home. Let me say, guest speakers are brought in, and some of them are like, there are things we just want to cover, like ecosystem partners who are working with founders in many different ways and talking about the importance of angel investors operating in a broader ecosystem, not in isolation. I remember one point I had to kind of pull a pivot because people got stuck on, there was some student or 2 of them in the class who really got into this idea around if a company needed to have do they need to have a patent for their thing? And I'm like, patents kind of might be too early to have a patent. Is that really important here? But it wasn't for me to teach. So I brought a friend who was a lawyer into class and kind of give them a whole lecture about what these things really mean in real life to help them kind of get over their stuck point. So the ability to bring professionals in from the field really helped make sure that they were receiving information, not just from me, but from folks that are partners in the ecosystem. The simulations were really important. So in their engagements with business owners that they were due diligence in, one of those meetings with the business owner had to be held during class time. So we invited all 3 business owners to class. Each team went off in a group with their business owners and used that as a way to get to know those business owners the very first meeting. Ask questions. They had a guide to kind of ask the right questions and make sure they kind of got enough information and get to meet them in real life and build a human connection. Because after this first meeting, you're going to start asking for financial information, a bunch of personal questions are going to keep popping up. And before you start going to their personhood and asking for all these details, let's get to meet them first. So that was really, really important, in a way for us to also have some advisors like Wendy and John and Dean Scully actually sit in those simulations to help the students like get some feedback afterwards on how they engage the conversations with the entrepreneurs. And then a lot of it, there were a lot of lectures in class to kind of continue to build on context, readings, discussions, lectures, again, an opportunity for them to talk to each other because many of them came from different walks of life and we wanted them to be able to kind of bring their own experience to the forefront as well. From an evaluation standpoint, relatively balanced. The assignments, which included weekly reflections and deliverable drafts, had their own weight. Engagement in class was really, really important. There were 3 exams along the way, and exams were really a way to making sure that we're doing the readings and remembering key concepts and some of the things that we were kind of trying to some of the key things I knew, if you're going to walk out of this class, you have to kind of like remember these things. That's what the exams were for. And then the final investment memo and presentation was delivered at the end. And those were assessed by myself and the investment committee that they pitched to, essentially. I'll wrap up with some quick feedback that we received from the students that I've kind of picked up over the last 2 years. Students have appreciated like the historical context that they got to like dig into. A lot of folks just didn't understand things like how our credit score system got developed and how it works in some cases and how it doesn't work in some cases, and how it actually further causes harm in communities that have been under invested in for so long. They get to learn about how banks choose to go into a community and how sometimes the lack of physical bank in your neighborhood does give you the opportunity to engage with the financial system. We kind of talk about those things in class to kind of help ground them. And students really, really appreciated that portion of it. The actual engagement with the entrepreneurs was a big hit for the students to get to talk to someone in real life who is going to see a real money if they choose to invest. The due diligence process and the underwriting, they always had a choice. Do you want to do this as an entire class, or do you want to break up into small groups? They always choose the small groups because it's more fun, more hands-on that way. They were given a choice at some point. Do you want to go find an angel group, a bunch of grownups who do this for a living, and just take their due diligence materials? Or do you want my investment fund to give you our due diligence materials and you just use that? No, they chose to get in deep with the entrepreneurs and make their own decisions, which was fun for me. And the meeting with connecting with professionals in the field was also really important. There were some anxieties about engaging real business owners who were grown-ups and they were students. There definitely was some feeling of inadequacy there. And also recognizing that the decisions they were going to make had a real impact on someone's life. Like, it's real money on the table, not fake dollars. This is real capital. And there's some pressure there. Do we have to say yes to everyone? Is it okay to say no, knowing that someone is not going to get money as a result of it? And I think that helped also drive some really good conversations in the class. And, even the fact that they had to go present their own analysis and collective agreements to an investment committee that was not in a class. And these are folks that are part of the university system. Certainly some anxiety about what if we said yes and then they said no, what happens then? But Wendy already shared some of the folks who've matriculated and gone on to roles in the field. That also brings me some joy that folks are actually going into the field and they're walking into that field with some of the context that we've helped them take on along their journey. I'll stop there and shift to the next person.
I guess that's me, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm Bahram Rugani. I'm Associate Dean for the Natural and Applied Sciences, which means I work with math, science, engineering, pre-health, and nursing programs. But I also teach a course in technical innovation entrepreneurship. I have one course teaching load in my job, and the course I teach is in teaching in technical innovation entrepreneurship. What I would like to do is to kind of connect what Wendy discussed and Jay's course to really what a university-based entrepreneurship ecosystem looks like and what are the main pillars of those. And this course and what Wendy said, it covers all of those. There are really 5 pillars in my opinion, for the university-based in entrepreneurship ecosystem. One is university-led I&E activities. It could be formal courses, such as the course that Jay's presenting, programs, spaces, such and such. The other one, the second pillar, will be leadership and institutional governance. It's going to be things like strategic plan of the university or presidential initiatives, whether university seriously engage in fundraising for these programs. The third pillar is academic culture, faculty recognition, faculty development, or tenure and promotion policies, those type of incentives and recognitions. The fourth pillar is a student-led and grassroots I&E activities, such as student club, pitch competition, student leaders who are focusing on entrepreneurial work. And last but not least is really connection with regional and national I&E activities. It could be some of that, for example, you can see as part of this course and also as part of Wendy's efforts in Baltimore area, basically. So those are really the main elements of the way I look at that. if you wanna have a course like the one that Jay is offering, one go and just offer the course in the vacuum. It may not work. What it really needs, it needs that background, that ecosystem that supports faculty and supports the course offering. And also it brings it to the attention of the students on campus that there are programs like that available to them. So it's really, we have to try to do this one, jumping just offering a course, it may not be sustainable if it doesn't have the other elements. If the leadership is not supporting it, if it's being discouraged by the in terms of faculty productivity, and if those elements are not in place, then it's not going to be successful. But fortunately, Loyola has gradually developed and enhanced the entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurship ecosystem, which is now is mature, and it can be a good place to leverage to offer courses like the one that Jay offers. So that's what really my pitch about this course, and also about the great work that Wendy is doing. Thanks.
Thank you all from Loyola for sharing all that information. We do have some questions already coming through on the chat. I encourage people to continue jumping in with those. I'll ask maybe a general question, and around angel investing courses. One of the challenges that I've seen is the big difference between the real world and academia, right? We all live in that intersection. And the real world in this context means, making investments with real dollars in companies that are, entrepreneurs who are trying to make something happen. And academia is kind of like, all right, well, we've got our syllabus and we've got our semester schedule. And if your investment fits into that, then it can work. But if it doesn't, the class is over, too bad. And in a topic like angel investing, it's often a months-long type process, and of course, you don't see the results for many, many years later in most cases. So, how do you guys manage that with the limitations of academia? And maybe a related question. Well, I'll just stop at that. Yeah, we'll go with that. Like, how do you kind of manage that timeline of real-world companies mixing in their needs with the needs of academic syllabus and schedule and curriculum requirements?
I'm happy to jump in real quickly, and Wendy, if there's something you want to add, you can. I think one is part of setting expectations up front with the companies themselves and letting the founders know that they are part of the student's academic journey, right? So there is some mutual benefit here. There's a possibility you may get an investment or not get an investment, but by you participating, you're helping students learn in the process, and they have to show up with that spirit to some extent, right? The same way the students are showing up with the spirit of, right, gratitude and recognizing that they have an opportunity to actually invest capital in the business that needs it. So I think there's some mutual thing that's happening there, the way we communicate and set expectations. And then the founders know that, yes, this might be a several month long process, but you're only being asked for 3 meetings max. And in those 3 meetings, you're going to give the information that you need. So they're not going to be dragging you through the coals. It's just that they know exactly what they're getting into. And a lot of them either have already gone down the road of trying to secure capital before, or they need capital. So they're kind of prepared for whatever that was going to take, right? The harder part that we still have not been able to figure out is the post-investment side of things. So the students are mixed seniors and first-year MBAs, right? So they're going to finish, they're going to graduate. And they don't, is there a newsletter at some point that says, hey, if you're ever taking this class, let's tell you how these students are doing. If, what's the infrastructure to follow up with those students? With those entrepreneurs, to see, is it an annual report that we get so that we can share with all the alumni of the class? I do it for every new class. I introduce the previous companies that have been invested in, and I tell them about it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's incorporated into the coursework for the semester. They just get to hear about it. So definitely some challenges there and how to manage for that.
Yeah, thanks for that info. And a question that came through on the chat is, what do the structures of these deals look like? Is it equity? Is it safe? Does it vary? Are you guys setting the terms?
I mean, keeping it simple, convertible notes. And the students are setting the terms, but with some guidance, of course. They understand what those mean. So you don't want to be a jerk about it, but you want to make sure you bring enough resources back into the fund if this good happens. So as part of the education process is really helping them understand the different types of venture debt models that exist, why we're settling on convertible notes, but they learn about warrants and safe notes and all of that. And then we tell them you don't really have a choice, which is kind of funny to teach them a bunch of stuff and then tell them they don't have a choice. That's part of the learning. I mean, there is some friction in that, I'll be honest with you. For a company that's already picked up some venture debt in the past, this all makes sense. It also means there's not room for a lot of negotiation. The companies are bringing their term sheets and the students are like, well, it's already set. There's not a lot of negotiation here. We just have to learn through this. If it's their first time seeking venture debt, then there's a conversation with the students about, let's be very clear, they're going to take the money because they need it, right? But them taking a convertible note with such an early stage company does have implications on how they raise money in the future. So we need to talk to them about that to make sure they understand that. And in the term sheet from Loyola, we may need to leave some room for flexibility in case a future investor comes and say, we got to buy you guys out because we can't do this. Like we can't harm them in the process too, recognizing that taking venture money such early in the process has ramifications. So again, that's part of the education for all parties involved, including the business owners themselves.
The investment industry, early stage investment, is full of nuances, right?
Yeah.
That's I know we have students who run stock picking funds, and they kind of think of this like that, like, oh, if I pick the right stock and it goes up, that's great. This is very different than picking stocks. So I think you pointed out some of those.
I'm
There's a
sorry,
question from somebody named Tommy
bef-
White. I don't know who Tommy White is. I'm kidding. He's our friend at American University. Tommy's asking about the $250,000 that started this. Is it part of the endowment, or is it a separate fund? Do the people that wrote that check expect something in return for it other than some great educational outcomes?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. So it's not, the fund is separate. It doesn't sit in the endowment, but it is a gift fund. So the folks who pay into it are donors. They get a charitable tax receipt, and they don't have an expectation that they're going to get a personal return. Now, certainly we try to create lots of other returns, like invite them into the classroom to share their expertise. We also would like to get to a place where they might be co-investors with us. And that's a place for development in the future. But the fund, any returns that we do get from the fund, from the investments, go back into it.
Who signs all the documents, right? Like, and it maybe related to that is, managing these types of investments is not the same as, a traditional faculty member's job or even a center director. It's kind of, you got some fiduciary roles there. The paperwork might have to be done when school's not in session. And, I've heard other counterparts at universities who kind of end up, basically having a half-time or full-time job managing this type of a program in addition to everything else they're supposed to be doing. Or it becomes like a half-time job where they have to chase other people in the university finance department for signatures and things like that. So how do you guys manage those sorts of things?
One thing we did was created this investment committee. So all of the folks on campus who really need to be involved with this and need to have their signatures, including our VP of finance and the dean of our business school, they are on that committee. So they come into the class and they get to sort of, ideally they stamp the students' recommendations. So we get them engaged in that way, but we do have to get them sign off. The paperwork goes through the lawyers. We have not been able to close deals in the course of the semester. So, we try to keep in touch with the students. I see one of them is here on the chat and he likes the idea of a newsletter. He's working in venture now. So welcome, Jameson. And we do try to let them know. We also do a lunch and learn every year where we invite our investees back. And so current students, it's really it's an inspiring opportunity to learn about what these companies are doing, and it's also a bit of a commercial for the class, because students get excited about the opportunity that they see before them.
Nice. So are there, oh yeah, how did you recruit Jay? Sounds like he's a key part of the team there.
Yeah, no question. I mean, there's no way we could do this class. The most important thing, I think, is having the right faculty member. So as soon as we had this idea and started working on it, I started just kind of whispering in Jay's ear when I saw him around town in Baltimore. And we are really lucky that he's so committed to his work in impact investing that he's willing to carve out time to share with students. And he's a great teacher. He's passionate, as you all can see. And the students really are excited to hear from somebody who's absolutely in the weeds in this work. So Jay has been a critical piece to making these be successful, but happily not the hardest piece of making it work, right? Because we were just very aligned, right? Because he is also interested in seeing this happen. So that's where that stakeholder alignment really worked out for us.
And I don't know if I missed this earlier, but can you kind of describe the portfolio? Like, what are the sizes of investments? How many have you made? Any other kind of characteristics that you think can help us understand it?
Still very much early stage. I mean, the first class had the benefit of in the structure of the course, really thinking about portfolio strategy, and you have this much, you need this much in operating capital. This is how much you can invest, right? Do you like go all in at one time? Do you, layer this thing year over year? So there was part of the first course was doing just that. And they all collectively arrived at, all right, 2 to 3 investments a year, hence the 2 to 3 investment committee teams. And each check was going to be somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000. Again, it's like for it's not the most amount of money ever, but for some businesses, it's what they need, and for some, it's what they need to survive the next couple of months. But a way to make sure that future classes had enough to be able to also invest money, because the nature of these investments, especially when you use a venture debt model, you're accepting the fact that money is not coming back in tomorrow, right? It's not a cash-based business where you're doing a debt structure that you start seeing some repayments as soon as possible. So you don't want to so part of this, even setting the terms, is how realistic of a term can you set here that allows some money to come back in, so future classes don't have to operate with an empty bank. So that was all part of the first class. And then the second class shifted more to portfolio management plus future design as well. But the checks are between $20,000 and $40,000, typically a 4 to 6 year term on that note structure. Yeah.
And how many deals so far?
4 or 5, Wendy?
3.
3. I thought it was, we got a no in there along the way. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it's early stage, right? You don't know what the returns are going to look like for some period of time. So as long as the company's still in business, there's still hope for each of those. Angel investing is like a 10-year horizon, right?
Yeah.
Or like you said, maybe 6 years, but it kind of depends.
I mean, for whatever it's worth, I think Baltimore is a small city. And now, 2 out of the 3 businesses, the students didn't know this. One of them, our fund was already diligencing at the exact same time the students were diligencing this business. I didn't tell them that. The day the entrepreneur came to class to engage the students, I had to pull her outside and give her a check from my fund, but the students didn't know that. It just happens to happen at the same time. And another one we were already in their cap table, and then the Loyola fund put more money in. I saw that to say that the type of businesses that are seeing are folks that already have some credibility out there. So there's some level of security, quote unquote. They're not just taking too big a risk.
Have you had any student entrepreneurs pitching to the Angel Fund? Is there a bias for or against that sort of an investment option?
The Wendy question.
Students can absolutely apply. We maybe have had students, but they are sort of a minority within our Baltipreneurs cohorts. So there's 1 or 2 students a year versus, 10 or 11 from the community. So we have fewer of them, but they absolutely, yeah, could apply.
I mentioned that we had a course where students would learn about seed investment, and the professor would write a check for the company they chose at the end of the course. And sometimes the students maybe chose the charismatic peer student. And some of those didn't go very well as investments. But anyway, the peer kind of pressure, when it wasn't their actual money to write checks for, I think maybe they made decisions in different ways. Kind of interesting to see, but still good learning.
Really interesting.
There's a question around, do the founders need to bring investment to the table already, or are you guys sometimes the first money in?
Yeah, we've been the first money in. We've also not been the first money in. The way I look at that is we see what the application looks like. We select deals that we think have a really good idea before we start looking at who's gotten money and not gotten money, because we don't want that to be a bias. And then if we get to a place where it's like, oh, they've already gotten money before, and then that's a conversation to be had, right? Are you going to bias against them because they've already gotten money, or do you really want to look at their projections and see what your use of funds will be and why they strategically need your money, even if they've gotten money before? Or is there a bias against being the first investor because you think it's too risky? And if you're the one that's saying it's too risky, who's coming to save them anytime soon because you're the angel, right? So those things allow for a robust conversation in the class. The students do get the chance to make a decision and present their own final analysis. But those are real opportunities for the students to really learn about what those conversations look like in real life.
Here's a future projection question. So if you make, 10 investments around 20,000 each, or maybe something similar to that, and you're doing 2 or 3 a year, then, within 3 or 4 years or so, you're going to have spent all the $250,000, right? At that point, what do you project? Do you think you'll raise more funds? Do you think maybe an exit will replenish, or you just no way to know and you just kind of play it as it goes?
Well, Jay, I'd love to hear from you on this, but let me just briefly say that, Jeff, that certainly raising more money is, pretty close to the top of my list. So we're going to go out and keep talking about this work. And we actually have a lot of supporters who have continued to add to the fund. So it's a great conversation. And it's been a lot of fun to find folks who want to support this work.
I have nothing to add except, Wendy, please keep finding money.
And hope for some exits there along the way too.
Sure.
All right. And I guess I'll have one more question I'll ask to close out here. And that's just, as other universities and other centers might be considering something like this, are there any key lessons or takeaways? I know you've shared a lot already, but is there anything else you think that might help us just kind of think what should we really know before getting into this kind of a project?
Wendy, I don't know how you think about this because I'm not in Wendy's position, but it's something I think about often in my own work for our own fund, is the expectations that we're sending with the folks who are putting the money in a pot, right? I mean, we raise our money to pay back, right? When they're contributing to funds, and then it's not an expectation of payback, but you want to report good things coming out of it. I think part of what I try to educate the students on is the benefit they have in this moment is that there is no pressure that this has to work, because the university is not liable for this money to repayment. Now, don't treat it as such. That also means you're not going to sit here and overanalyze either. Angel investors understand the risk that they're taking. It's an informed risk, but you require risk takers in a system to make the system work. So I think part of my message would be, I think the university itself would need to even embody some of that, right? We are here to help students think outside of the box, because if we don't help them think outside of the box, we're just going to go back to teaching them to do things the same exact way that has been done before. And we know that those systems don't work for everyone, and we only make the system worse, right? But the ability to think outside of the box and think differently inherently means taking risk, and the university should be able to accept that. The folks who are putting the money in should accept that, and therefore that can be translated to the students as well, while still teaching them that diligence is important.
Well said. And for those who are interested in getting a copy of the syllabus, Wendy has offered to share that with anybody that emails her, and you can see her email in the chat there. I want to thank you all, Wendy, Jay, Balaram, for being very open and transparent with the work you're doing there. It's certainly a great program. I appreciate the way you've designed that, and I hope it continues to be greatly successful on both a pedagogical standpoint and maybe a financial standpoint at some point too.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right. So with that, just a couple of things I'll share as we kind of close out here. Just want to thank everybody for being a part of today's session. Again, a big thanks to our colleagues from Loyola, Maryland. And just encourage everybody to stay connected here through GCEC. We do have a Slack workspace, which is a relatively new feature that is for members of GCEC. I've seen some of the channels there are getting more and more active, so it's a great way to ask questions about programs like this or anything else that you're learning about through GCEC. And the invitation from me, that in this case, me, would be from Holly. Holly DeArmond is the person. If you don't know how to access the Slack channel, reach out to Holly. She can help you with that. And some more new things going on. We're creating affinity groups by region. So if you're interested in connecting with people who are near you in entrepreneur centers, then that's something that we're trying to do more of through GCEC. And of course, we're going to have an amazing conference later in the fall. Where are we going? We're going to Calgary. So that'll be fun. And before that, of course, our next webinar, we'll see you guys in about a month here on a Friday. And the next one will be another award-winning program. This one the Arizona State won the award for Outstanding Student Engagement and Leadership. And you'll hear all about creating a pipeline to entrepreneurship and innovation. So look forward to seeing everybody at the next webinar. Thanks again to our panelists, and thanks everybody for being a part of today's session.
Bye.